We're live now.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the decision day for myself, the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services and the Executive Member for Education. These decision days are being broadcast in one of our sessions live on YouTube via the County Council website. So if I go straight into the agenda for this afternoon, the first item on my agenda is lowering the age range for South Wonston Primary School. And Peter, I believe you are presenting this one.
Yeah, I am. Good afternoon, councillors and colleagues. So the purpose of this report is to provide you with feedback on a statutory public notice to lower the age range at South Wonston Primary School to 2 years. And the recommendation will be that it seeks your approval to lower the age range to 2 years to accommodate an early years provision. Sections 4 to 8 provide an exec summary, which confirms that the governing body have reviewed the plans and the proposals and are in agreement. The project would use the existing footprint and use excess space which is available within the school, and that the school will monitor the income from themselves, and there'll be no cost to Hampshire County Council. It also confirms that public consultation has taken place between the 1st of November and the 29th of November 2024, and there were no concerns raised through that consultation. So sections 9 to 13 give you some contextual information, and South Wonston Primary School is a maintained village school, primary school in the Winchester district. It has a capacity of 416 children. Its occupancy is currently 293, so there is capacity there, and its planned admissions number each year is 30. So they're looking to add 24 early years places. This will not make it an all-through school, and parents will need to apply for year R places in the normal way, but we don't foresee too much pressure on that. The proposal supports local childcare needs, especially since the loss of a local preschool in the area. So we also recognise that it will give the school early insight and interventions for children with special educational needs and disabilities or emerging SEND. Section 14 of the report, the finance. So a business plan has been submitted by the school, which suggests that they will generate a small surplus and the early years income will be treated separately from the main school budget. Sections 15 to 17, consultation and equalities. So no objections were raised to the school through the public consultation or directly to Hampshire County Council. There is an equalities impact assessment attached in Appendix A, and it highlights the benefits of the inclusive provision which will be provided at the school. But section 18 and 19 climate change impact assessment, and that is attached in Appendix B, and due to using the existing footprint of the building, obviously there's limited impact there. So in conclusion, the proposal will support places in the ward. It will replace lost capacity from the closure of a local preschool. It does support the government's objectives for 30 hours of free childcare for eligible families in the area, and it meets our local sufficiency need. So the recommendation is that we recommend that the Executive Lead Member for Children's Services approves the proposal for South Wonston Primary School to lower its age range to 2 years.
Thank you, Peter. I think this sounds like a really positive plan for the school and the local community going forward, and the children that will attend there. I love the fact that it will give the school the opportunity to have some insight on the children that are going to potentially come through their school, and be able to better support them going forward as well, and their families. So I think this is a really positive thing to be able to do. I don't know if any other members have got any questions today. No. Therefore, if I take us to the recommendations, I'm happy to approve the recommendation to lower the age range for South Wonston Primary School. Thank you so much, Peter, for your report, and I look forward to hearing about the success of the early years setting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The second item on the agenda is the determination of the post-16 transport policy 25-26, and I'm going to hand over to John to present this report.
Thank you, Councillor Chad. Thanks, members and colleagues. I have a short, very brief presentation that I'll share. There we are. And I'll start. So the each local authority is required by law to prepare and publish every year an annual post-16 transport policy. It's always required by the 31st of March, May, sorry, for the following September. In Hampshire, we this year's policy is the changes are very slight, and there are just two proposals. One is to add a paragraph to the policy to clarify what evidence we need parents to provide to support an application for post-16 transport. And the second proposal is to make changes to the wording and formatting of the post-16 policy to make it clearer and easier to read. Neither of these proposals change practice, the things that the team do, and neither of them change eligibility for school transport post-16. They're both clarifying what we already do. Public consultation was held between the 4th of November and the 15th of December to understand the views from parents and other children and other stakeholders. We received 51 responses, with 30 of those responses also providing comments. An overview of the responses to the proposals is on the screen in front of you. For proposal 1, 39% of the respondents agreed with that proposal or strongly agreed, and 51% disagreed. But most of the disagreements were about not the fact of putting that work paragraph into the policy itself, but objecting to the idea that we require evidence, and really, I suppose, thinking that they had a statutory eligibility post-16, which isn't the case. So overall, it's slightly less than half were in approval, but a lot of the objections weren't actually about the particular change proposed. Proposal 2 was strongly supported, with 67% of respondents agreeing or strongly agreeing with the proposal. As I said, in general, the negative comments weren't about that kind of clarification in the policy, and the comments referred to kind of the implications for their ability to get to work, and that it might be intrusive to ask for evidence. All of those ideas are covered in the Department for Education guidance, and it's just something that we're reflecting in our policy. And as I said, proposal 2, 2/3 of those responding agreed. There was one additional comment that was interesting. So we have changed the policy since, which was about the end of post-16 support. And a respondent pointed out that our policy currently said until a young person is 24, but it actually is possible for them to receive support past that if they are 25 and their education healthcare plan is continued to be maintained past their 25th birthday. It has to finish at the end of that year, but the respondent was correct, and so we've changed that wording as well. So the recommendations, the themes, sorry, I've gone on one too far, apologies. No, the recommendation is that the changes to the policy are approved and that we publish the policy on or before the 31st of May in time for next September.
Thank you, John. Just on the first recommendation, I think it's really important that we do ask for that evidence, because I think it's important that we are, making sure that we're able to provide this provision for those that really need it. And as budgets as they are at the moment in this particular area, we have to be mindful of that. So actually, residents being able to provide that clarification for us and that evidence really helps us to be able to provide an ongoing service to everyone else actually as well. So I think that's really important. I'd like to thank the person that picked up about the age of 24 as well. I think that was very, very grateful for them to be able to do that. And I'm all for always making these policies far more clearer for residents, for anyone really. I think we really should be striving to be in a place where policies can be almost pulled off the shelf and really read by anyone and understood by anyone. I think that's should be our aim going forward. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments about this one. Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Councillor Chad. Yes, just to agree with both your key comments, that it was good that respondent picked up on that, which is much appreciated. It's frustrating that we do a lot of consultations and we always do listen and take on board comments, and then we get comments back saying, oh, you've already predetermined it or you've made your decision. I think this just highlights that we actually take on board those comments, research them properly, and make changes incorporating them. So I'm really pleased that that's been done. And the other thing in terms of clarity, I'm a great believer, if we can, in using best practice plain English. And I think the changes made certainly move towards that. We've had some issues with school transport in particular, because some of those most in need are those that actually sometimes struggle with English. May not be their first language. So the easier it is to understand, the clearer it is written, and the more detailed it is in terms of things like provision of evidence, just helps people get it right first time, and that's great news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forster. I couldn't agree more. I find it far easier myself if a policy is in plain English and I can take it off the shelf and read it and understand it. I think that's definitely something we should always aim to be able to do. Has anyone else got any questions or comments on this one? Okay. If I go to the recommendations, then I'm happy to approve the post-16 transport policy for 2025. And thank you, John, for your report today, and thank the rest of your team for everything they do as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item on my agenda is Pennington Infant School and Pennington Church of England Junior School proposed amalgamation, which is, I think I'm handing over to Richard for this one.
You are. Thank you, Councillor Chad. Yes, this is regards Pennington Infant and Pennington Junior School, and an informal consultation on amalgamation of the two schools, with a recommendation that we proceed to a public notice to formally consult on the amalgamation of the two schools. We, at the bequest of the governing body, undertook an informal consultation on the amalgamation of the infant and junior schools at Pennington between October and November, at which we received 8 comments. Most of those are addressed under section 20 and in appendix B, and were addressed at a drop-in session held at the junior school. The reason for the amalgamation, or proposed amalgamation, is a continuing declining numbers at the two schools, and this would enable us to stabilise the two schools into a primary school through the relocation of the infant school onto the junior school site, the closure of the infant school, and the age downing of the junior school. There is minimal amounts of capital work to be done to affect the amalgamation should it be approved, but that will be allowed for in a capital programme, and we'll report on that in due course. The scheme is supported by the schools. It should support performance, and since October the schools have been under the leadership of one head teacher, the junior school head teacher, and standards have improved since then, so that's a positive thing. So to sum up, it's a positive position to take. It's a good thing for the schools. The schools share the same site. It will notionally release an asset that the County Council needs to consider its future in terms of the infant school, but a consideration around that is there is early years on the site, and we will ensure the early years provision is maintained as well should the amalgamation go forward.
Thank you, Richard. I think that this is a really good idea personally. I think that it enables better transition for our young people if it's a primary setting rather than a separate infant and junior school. And I think the more and more we see about the the social and emotional and mental health needs of our young people going forward, and the younger age that's coming in fruition, I think actually a primary school setting is often a much better place for young people, with that removal of the transition between infant and juniors. I'm pleased to hear that the early years provision is going to be maintained on the infant school site, and I think the best advocate for this is that the fact it's come from the governing body, and that's a real positive, and it sustains the school for a considerable number of years going forward, despite the reduced numbers. Councillor Forster, have you got anything to add to that before I go to Councillor Baines?
No, please let Councillor Baines speak.
Councillor Baines.
Thanks, Ros, and thanks, Richard, for that. I think it's a really positive thing as well. I'm glad to hear you mention, Richard, about the prospect. I know it's not a decision being made today, but in the future about utilising the site for SEND purposes. Just wondered whether that was the intention moving forward. I know it's probably difficult to comment at this stage, but whether that was a realistic option for local residents to sort of see in the future of the site. Thank you.
SEN colleagues are keen to explore the provision of SEN on that site, and in particular to support need in the forest, which has always been a challenge. So there's positive conversations going on with colleagues in SEN about how the infant school site, should the proposals go ahead, be adapted to support a future SEN offer.
Councillor Forster.
No, thank you. I'm very happy with this. As you say, it's been driven by the governors, and we have got some thoughts in mind in terms of future usage. So I'm fully supportive. Thank you, Councillor Chad.
Thank you. So if I take us to the recommendations, I'm very happy to approve to give publication of the public notice to amalgamate Pennington Infant School and Pennington Church of England Junior School with effect from the 1st of January 2026. So thank you, Richard, for your report. And I will move us on to the next item on the agenda, which I believe is you again, Richard, but this is Orchardley Infant School and Orchardley Junior School, and the proposed amalgamation and publication of a statutory public notice for this one.
This is a slight nuance on the Pennington report, Councillor Chad, in the sense this is seeking your approval to commence a period of statutory consultation on the amalgamation of Orchardley Infant and Orchardley Junior School in Fareham. The schools are federated and under a single head teacher, which has improved performance of the schools quite considerably in recent times. This is as a result of the government seeking to invest in both schools as part of the school rebuilding programme. So initially the junior school was deemed to be in need of replacement, and subsequently further investigations in regards to the infant school, the same conclusion was reached, that the school needed replacing. So we entered discussions with the school and the DfE around a sensible and pragmatic approach to this, which was to create, if we were going to replace the two schools, it was best to replace them with a primary school and not a new infant and junior school. The governing body are happy to proceed on the basis that they will amalgamate should the DfE commit to and undertake the works to create a new primary school. I can confirm I spoke to the Director of Capital at the DfE yesterday, and they are committed to taking this scheme forward and providing a new primary school on the site. Therefore, the request and the recommendation is that following an informal period of public consultation, which we had one supportive response to, that we publish a public notice to consult formally on the amalgamation of the two schools. We won't seek to actually amalgamate the two schools until the new primary school is actually constructed and complete in September 2028, because there would be, and quite rightly there is, the question of the value of that amalgamation to the schools if the new primary school doesn't come about. So they are financially better off as an infant and junior. and are reasonably stable as an infant and junior. Therefore, they are keen to progress, but equally keen that we hold off on actually physically implementing the amalgamation until the new school is built.
Thank you, Richard. This all makes perfect sense in the way that we're going about this, that to go to the public notice for amalgamation, but actually holding that off until 2028. And I think that obviously does help the school, and that's been the ask of the school, and I think that's really good that we can oblige in that. For the same reasons, I know that the school do a really good job with transition and things like that into the infant to the juniors, but I do think that going forward a primary would be a much better position for the children going forward, and just with those transition years, I think it's really significant change, isn't it, for some young people. I'm really happy with the recommendation. I don't know if any other members have got any questions or comments about this one. No, so if I go
Chad, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
I would just add that unlike the Penningtons, this amalgamation and construction of a new primary is not likely to release an asset for the county council, but the site is of sufficient size that we can build the new primary school on one part of the site while maintaining fully operational the infant and junior school, and then subsequent to the completion of the new primary school, we will demolish the infant and junior buildings.
That's really reassuring. Thank you for that extra piece of information, Richard, and I think it's really important that actually that it's maintained going forward in that respect, that it's being able to be built on the land that we currently have. So if I quickly take us to the recommendation, and I'm happy to give approval to the publication of the public notice to amalgamate Orchard Lee Infant School and Orchard Lee Junior School with effect from July 2028. That brings me to the end of my decision day. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Councillor Steve Forster, the Executive Member for Education.
Councillor Chad, thank you very much. Really appreciate the work that you've done. The first item of two on my list is along the similar sort of lines to the last two items. So I think this is one for Max. It's the it's the alterations to the former Peel Common Junior School building to create primary. Max, are you going to take us through this one?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Forster. So just briefly, the amalgamation was agreed in May 2024, and in that paper it was noted that the plan would be that the school would amalgamate into the former junior school building with and so the children would come out into the previous infant school. The amalgamation has sort of happened in terms of the management of the school from January this year. So what we're doing now is just looking at the works to accommodate the infant school children in the junior school building. The reason why we've chosen the junior school is because there is more accommodation there, and actually it's quite a good suitable size. It also links an awful lot better with the school playgrounds and the school playing field, so it works neatly within the site to give the school a nice flow and so on for the children in their educational experience. The existing building is comprises of a hall, and then there are 2 blocks of classrooms, and in each block there are 4 classrooms. So what we're able to do quite neatly is have Key Stage 2 with the 4 junior classes in one block, and then Key Stage 1 and the foundation year, so years 1 and 2, and then Year R and the nursery that already exists within the school in the second block. So what we're going to be doing is refurbishing that single block for the infant school children to move across. Whilst the work is in progress, they'll remain in the infant school until they're ready to move into the new building. The work is generally internal alterations and refurbishment to ensure that new accommodation is good quality and suitable for teaching the curriculum. We will also be replacing windows and doors to make sure that we've got good access to outside play and so on, and refurbishing toilets so that they're of a suitable size for the children that will be there. For the nursery, we're also providing some special toilet and changing facilities and a sort of food warming staff area as well. Finally, we'll be undertaking some works to the outside as well to provide outdoor play space, a canopy, those sorts of things, so that the children have got that outdoor play that they're required under the curriculum. We've done the work in close liaison with the school leadership team and the early years service, so they're fully engaged and working with us and signed up to the scheme. The cost of the work is around 750,000, as it notes in the report, and the work is starting imminently and will be complete for the children to move in for the summer term. I think that gives you hopefully a good précis, and happy to take any questions.
Max, that's superb. I've read through this, looked at the plans, which look really positive, and I know the funding from this is coming from the Basic Needs Grant, which is always appreciated. I was really pleased to see the toilet and washing facilities, because I know how important that is to these aged children. So I'm really pleased. I don't have any questions, but Councillor Chad or other members, do you have any questions or comments? No. Okay. On that basis, I'm happy to proceed to the recommendations as detailed in paragraph 2 to approve that spend and enter the contractual agreements at that cost base of approximately £750,000. Max, thank you for the work that you and your colleagues have done on this. Greatly appreciated. It lets us move on to the last item, item 6 on the agenda, which is the determination of the 26-27 admission arrangements. And Nick, I think this is one for you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Forster. So this report informs the Executive Member for Education on the annual exercise for the local authority, which is the consultation on the admission arrangements for the 358 Hampshire County Council voluntary controlled and community schools for 2026-27. Ultimately, the report seeks the approval of the executive member for those proposed admission arrangements for those schools. You will see that there are 20 annexes that constitute the arrangements, plus some further annexes detailing consultation responses we received, in particular responses we received to some of the planned catchment changes. There are also several recommendations from the Hampshire Admissions Forum that seek the executive members' agreement, and that's outlined at section 2. So the consultation and determination process is a statutory duty under the School Admissions Code. In Hampshire, all proposed arrangements are part of a pre-consultation process around published admission numbers, school-specific criteria and catchment changes, and are also subject to admission forum scrutiny before being published in the statutory autumn consultation. Those responses are then considered by the admissions forum in the spring term, prior to them making recommendations that are making up the body of this paper. So the specific arrangements are some minor wording changes to the admission policies at annexes A to E. There are no changes proposed to oversubscription criteria, but the changes seek to ensure the policies are, where possible, clear, fair and objective. There are also 2 additions to school-specific criteria for 2 schools. School-specific criteria can be requested by schools to address local anomalies, which would otherwise result in unintended outcomes when we were rigidly implementing arrangements across the board for all schools. There are also further adjustments to school-specific criteria resulting from the ceasing of transitional arrangements. These are arrangements that are proposed to mitigate the impact on families living in affected areas where catchment changes take place with children already on roll at school. At Annex G, you will note 16 proposed reductions at primary schools reflecting surplus in the system. There are 3 increases proposed for primary schools for specific circumstances outlined in the paper, but reductions are only ever proposed where officers believe, based on forecast data, that the proposed reductions don't compromise the LA's duty to provide sufficient local school places. At Annex H, you will note a proposed reduction in the secondary phase, reflecting the reduced forecast at the Hurst School in Tadley, and then 3 further reductions at secondary schools to ensure they have capacity to integrate children from resource provisions into the mainstream provision. There are also 3 proposed increases to meet sustained forecast demand. Annexes I to M are the proposed catchment area changes. It's worth noting that the changes in Annex M to support the building of Heartland Village Primary School are no longer proposed for 2026 due to the delayed opening of that school to 2027. So Annex I is catchment changes in Gosport where we received no responses. Annex J is a catchment change related to the Toynbee School. We received 2 responses, neither of which were objecting. Annex K is a proposed catchment area change related to the development at Blandford House and Malta Barracks in Aldershot. There were 7 responses. 1 was actually unrelated to the proposal, but we responded to that accordingly. 6 responses were not supportive, but paragraph 25 contains details of the officers' responses and our continuing view that this is an appropriate proposal moving forward to respond to this particular development. Annex L is the proposed catchment change to the catchments of Tavistock Infant and Tweedledale Infant School, and ultimately that's to address a local anomaly that was pointed out to us by a resident. And again, although there were a couple of non-supportive responses within there, paragraph 29 contains details of the officers' responses to those consultation responses and includes information as to the specifics of the change and why it's being proposed. At Annex N, you will find a nursery policy for community and voluntary controlled schools in Hampshire. The oversubscription criteria remains unchanged for those 3 nurseries, but the wording's been updated by colleagues in Services for Young Children to reflect the changed legal position around entitlement. We then have several further annexes which are broadly unchanged. So we have the Yateley sixth form policy. There is just 1 minor change to wording there. The coordinated scheme for main round admissions has the dates adjusted to fit the particular year that's relevant, but no other changes. Likewise, Annex Q, which is the supplementary information form for voluntary controlled schools, and Annex R, which is the random allocation process when there is a tiebreaker in play when we're ranking children, are also proposed with no changes. We then have Annex S, which is the list of federated junior schools, where children attending the linked infant school are given higher priority, and there are 2 additions to this list. And then Annex T is a copy of the consultation webpage for information, but that does include the inclusion for 2026 of Stanhope and Cambridge primary schools being added as linked schools for the Wavell and Alderwood schools in Aldershot. So after all of that, the recommendation is that the executive member approve the proposed admission arrangements for the admission rounds for applying for school places in the academic year 26-27 for Hampshire's voluntary controlled and community schools as outlined in section 2.
Nick, thank you very much. That was detailed and diligent as always. I'd like to pick up on a couple of parts, but before I do, I actually do have one question, Nick. I'm appreciative that, as with most consultations, we do in these reports answer them in some considerable detail. But I just wondered, and I'm sorry, I don't actually know this, when we do get these respondents who contribute, we answer their details, but do we individually respond to them, highlighting the report publications so that they know that we've taken on board and responded to their answers, or do we rely on them to look at the report without being prompted?
So the response that we typically give signposts them to this decision-making process. I don't think we then subsequently follow up to that and say we've published the agenda and this item is available. As you point out, Councillor Forster, we do try and respond to each of the queries as they're raised or the responses as they're raised, and do mention this decision-making process. But I don't think when the agenda is published, we say to the respondents, you will see it's now being published. that's something we can look to do in future.
No, I don't think there's any need. If we signpost them to it in the first place, then they can look out for it, and I think that's perfectly adequate. So thank you for that. The only other comment I have relates to the fact that 2 of the areas are within or adjacent to my ward, the Tavistock, for instance, Fleet Infants, Belmead, etc. And I just wanted to comment that it's disappointing that the developer has effectively slowed down the delivery of Heartland Village, but they are still compliant with the condition that was put on them by Hart District Council in terms of delivery on that school. If I remember rightly, it's on the 400th occupation of a dwelling. So we're albeit a year late. I don't think there's any impact from that, and I've certainly not had it raised with me by any residents other than the comment in the consultation responses. And I think the steps that you and the team have taken to address that and make sure that through till 2029 there's transition steps in place means there shouldn't be any difficulty for any parents. And if anything, it makes life a little bit easier for some of them because it's nice and predictable. So I'm greatly appreciative. Thank you. Councillor Chad or other members, do you have any comments or queries? No? Okay. On that basis, I think we can go straight to the recommendation. As you highlighted, Nick, it's the determination in line with the recommendations in paragraph 2. I'm not going to read it out because that will take me another 10 minutes that we won't get back. But as indicated in item 2, the admission arrangements for the academic year 26-27, I'm happy to approve all of those as detailed. Nick and everyone else who's been involved in my area and in Councillor Chad's previously, I'd like to say thank you very much. To those who are watching online, thank you for attending. I hope you found this useful, and I'd like to thank everyone once again. I'd like to ask for the recording then to be stopped because that brings us to the end of today's agenda. Emma, if you could please confirm when that stopped.